As a strong and powerful man, which organ do you think is the most important in your body? Of course, it's the brain. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, while other animals were still busy eating each other and playing their own games, our human ancestors, thanks to their good brains, had already started thinking about how to become the rulers of the earth. So there's really no need to discuss whether modern humans could beat wild animals barehanded. If my brain hasn't evolved, then sure, I'll compete with you in brute strength. But if my brain has evolved, and I still rely on brute strength, then what's the point of my brain evolving in the first place? Yet, this amazing brain only uses about 20 watts of power. Even so, there are plenty of animals that wish they had something like this. The brain is part of the nervous system, so rather than saying the human brain is powerful, it's more accurate to say that the human nervous system is powerful. Compared to invertebrates, the most obvious advantage of our nervous system is that our nerves have evolved to be wrapped in myelin sheaths, boosting signal transmission speed from just 2 meters per second all the way up to 100 meters per second. Faster signal transmission means I can respond to the external environment more quickly, which naturally makes me more adaptable. It's just like chasing after a girl. Faster you act, the more of an advantage you have. While you're still nervously asking if you can hold her hand, someone else is already in a rose petal covered hotel suite. Tell me, how are you ever going to get a wife at that rate? The human nervous system is further divided into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord, located along the body's central axis, and is responsible for processing information and issuing commands. The peripheral nervous system consists of neurons and nerve fibers, and its job is to transmit information to all parts of the body. For example, if you encounter a wild animal in the wilderness, your central nervous system immediately starts thinking about the best solution, while your peripheral nervous system transmits that plan to your hands and feet to carry it out. One man managed to escape a bear attack using only a bow and arrow, but his friend, who was shot in the knee, wasn't so lucky. The basic unit of the nervous system is the neuron. The human brain contains more than 10 billion neurons of various shapes and functions. When a large number of these complex neurons cluster together, they form the brain. What does this tell us? It shows that the brain is essentially a large cluster of complex neurons gathered together. These neurons form different memories by establishing various connections with each other. Some memories are very short-lived, while others are deeply ingrained and can even last a lifetime. There are certain things that, once you've learned them, you won't forget even if you don't do them for a long time. The next time you do them, it still feels easy and natural, like riding a bicycle. Why is that? Some people might say it's muscle memory. In reality, muscles don't have memory. It's the nerves that remember. In the nervous system, if a stimulus appears continuously over a long period, new connections can form between neurons. When you learn to ride a bike, what actually happens is that your brain directly links the neurons responsible for the various auditory, visual, and tactile information involved in cycling with the neurons for the corresponding movement patterns, bypassing those neurons responsible for conscious thought. Essentially, it's like writing a new program in advance. The next time you ride a bike, your brain just needs to directly execute this existing program. This is what we call the plasticity of the human nervous system. The basic working principles of the nervous system are reflex and conduction. Simply put, receptors in the skin sense a stimulus, then nerves transmit the signal to the central nervous system, which processes it and sends instructions back to various organs in the body. At this point, let me quiz you with a question from middle school biology. If you get scalded by boiling water, do you pull your hand back first or feel the pain first? Intuitively, you might think you feel the pain first and then pull your hand back. But in reality, you pull your hand back first and then feel the pain, because the withdrawal reflex is a spinal reflex. When your hand is burned, the nerves transmit the stimulus signal to the spinal cord, which then directly issues the command to withdraw your hand. This process does not require the involvement of the brain, so the reaction is extremely fast. Pain generation is more complex. The stimulus signal reaches the spinal cord, then goes to the brain for processing. Only after the brain processes complex signals do you feel pain. Guys, make sure to remember this point. It'll be tested when you get to middle school. In fact, this design is very reasonable. For certain stimuli that can threaten the safety of the body, having the spinal cord issue commands directly allows you to quickly escape danger. The role of the brain is to make you feel pain afterwards, letting you know that this action was dangerous so you won't do it again next time. Many of the reflexes in our bodies are spinal reflexes. For example, the famous knee-jerk reflex is also commanded directly by the spinal cord and is not controlled by the brain. Although the human nervous system is efficient and advanced, it is also extremely fragile. The way we build muscle is by exercising moderately to tear muscle fibers, then replenishing protein so that the muscle fibers grow back thicker and stronger than before. But the nervous system is the opposite to neurons cannot replicate themselves like ordinary cells do. Once one dies, there's one less. So damage caused by overusing the nervous system is almost irreversible. In other words, if you frequently look at overly stimulating images, your nerves will be overloaded by excessive stimulation and won't be able to handle it. So everyone must exercise restraint and avoid overusing your brain. That's also why people often say a new brain works better than an old one. A young brain has more and more active neurons, so its thinking is also more agile. Take those great scientists, for example, their major academic achievements were mostly made during their 20s and 30s when their brains were at their peak. Einstein, for example, developed the photoelectric effect and special relativity at 26, and came up with general relativity at 36. But as he got older, besides teaching, all he did was argue with Bohr and others working on quantum mechanics, debating things like whether God is actually foolish. So, if you don't like studying or thinking, you're actually protecting your nervous system, my friend. To study without thinking leads to confusion, but not thinking or studying at all is pure bliss.